So team, welcome back for our day 2 for our Selenium training with Python along with RobotFramework. So let's continue, take a quick look at what we did in our day 1 and then we'll move forward. So primarily I've saved the test cases that we wrote in the day 1 as I've saved them in my system, and the way these files will get stored are like HTML formatting. The format in which these files that we create in Selenium IDE will get stored are HTML documents. So for example, this test case 2, when I open it, you will see that all the details are there in here that are sufficient to execute the test. So we saw what each of the columns refer. Do you all remember what the first column talks about? What is the word for it? I'm looking at your answers in the chat, please. Right. So the first column is your command or the instruction or the action that we perform on the given application. The next one is, what is the next column, team? That's the target. Target is used to identify the element upon which that specific action or command will get performed. And the final one are the inputs or values, that additional set of information that we need to provide for that step to run. All right. So if I send you this HTML file to you, you should be able to execute it on your Selenium IDE as well. It has all the information that is sufficient for it to run. Do you notice if there's anything missing in here? It says open the app, click on the link, type the username, type the password, click and wait the button, then verify the text. This is exactly how we want it. Did you notice anything that is missing, team? Where is the URL for interact.com? You can't see it here, right? But then when you right click and go to view page source, you will notice apart from all the information that is shown, the base URL, which is the main URL, is out here. So this is the primary URL from where the operation will start. Any sub pages or subdomains within that specific website will get treated accordingly. All right. So this is our test case 2. Now, let's talk about writing one test case additionally as a practice, team, just to practice as to what we have done so far. So I'm going to minimize everything. I'm going to bring up my IDE on one side and let me bring up my application on the other side. One of the most important aspects of Selenium IDE that we need to learn is how we do element identification. That is the most important aspect. Okay. So let's briefly look at, before I go there, what is it that we're going to cover in day 2. I'm going to quickly put it up here. So here are the list of things that we will do. We will write our own test case in Selenium IDE. That is the first thing that we want to do. Okay. Second is convert the code into a Python program for Selenium Webdriver. How do we switch that format? Okay, convert / change format. Then we will talk about the tools that are needed to be installed as part of our further learning. What all we need to install at our end. Okay, and then we will run a simple script using Python, Selenium Webdriver and Eclipse as an IDE right now, and we'll talk about what Eclipse is and so on. These are the high-level items, team, that we will focus on. So to start with, let's talk about how do we create our own test case in Selenium IDE. Earlier we did a record and run and we wrote a few things. So now I'm going to say a new test case. I'm going to rename this by right-clicking, going to the property, and I'll call this as iaft underscore tc. What did we name the previous one? iaft underscore login, right? Here I'll say forgot password. That's like another module, for example. It's a TC001. That is the name for this test case that I'm giving. Now the steps that are needed to be performed, let's look at it manually. First, we'll click on login. Then we will click on the forgot password button or link. I don't know what it is. We will enter a dummy email. Then we'll click on recover password. And I'm going to verify this text saying that email doesn't exist. It's a dummy email, so that does not exist. So this message is supposed to come up. Okay. Now, to do this, let's talk about the different steps that we need to do. What is the first command, team? I want the audience to participate with me, and please start answering the questions that I'm asking over the chat, please. What is the first command that we need to perform on this? We need to open the browser, or rather the application, right? So I say open as the command, and the target will be, since I already have interapp.com here, I just say /app. So we are writing our own code right now, team. So once we do that, we have reached the main page out here. What do we do next? We need to click on this login. So you remember the 3 ways of identifying, the 4 ways of identifying elements? I'm going to call this as element identification. And the first way is by using the attribute ID or name and see if there's a unique value for it. Or we use a link text if there is a link in there. Or we use a CSS, cascading style sheet methodology to identify the elements, Or finally, we have our XPath. To write an XPath, what is the format, team? Do you all remember? We discussed this yesterday. What is the format? To / HTML tag, open square brackets, at attribute name equals, in single quotes, attribute value. So for each and every element that we will do, we will go through as much as we can using the HTML tag, the XPath format. Okay, so now let's look at what will be the XPath for the first one, or what should we put. All right, so let's right click on login and inspect element with Firebug. What do we see? This has a HTML tag of A. That means that it is a link which can be clicked on. For link, all I need is link text and login is the name. So I'll just call this as, the command here is click and wait, because the page will load, so we have to wait. And here link equals login. If we are not sure, or even if you're sure, always use the find to find this. And you'll have to make sure that it is getting found. If you're not getting anything in log saying the element is not recognized, then we're good. Okay. Once we click on this login, what do we do next? We have to click on forgot password. So can I say click and wait, link equals, what is the link here? Looks like forgot password space question mark. And I'll say find. Do I find it? Yes. But that was an accidental approach, team. That was not the approach that you should actually follow. always right click on the element, inspect it, look at what the HTML tag is. Since this is the one and we could write the correct text, we got it. So we could click on this and click on enter forgot password. Now we need to enter an email address. How do we enter an email address? So the command for this is we want to type something in that field. And where do we type? In this field. How do we know what this field has? Inspect element with Firebug, we get the complete details. Okay, so now let's take this complete details and see how we could expand this. Let me increase the font so it's easy for everyone to see. Okay, now help me understand how I can write an XPath for this element. What is the HTML tag? 2 forward slashes. HTML tag in this case, the first word that comes after the less than symbol becomes the HTML tag. In this case, it is input. Then open your square brackets and take any attribute name that seems logical enough and put that out here. I can say ID, class, type, autocomplete, required, any of this. Let us try type. Okay, let us try type. Equals single quote whatever is the value out here, text, and then end square brackets. Copy this, test it in your IDE, make sure that it is correct. So find, does it find it? Does it blink anything here? Not necessarily, right? So you have to check in the log if it is able to find it, or it says that locator is not found. So that means that this is incorrect. Why do you think this would have occurred? Either HTML tag is incorrect, the attribute name is not correct, or the value is not correct. What you should do is try a different one. But in this case, I know the reason. The reason is because we moved from a Word document to the text here. I need to delete these single quotes that came from there and put it out here. Re-enter it, type it manually. And now let's say find. Now we can find that element. So you can clear your log and see. Now what is the value that we want to put? Something like this, at .com. Okay, so that is the command. So once we enter the same value out here and say recover, click on recover password. Oops, let's go back. How do I click on this recover password? That's the next one. So should this command be click or click and wait? I'll handle some of the questions as we go along, please, in a few minutes. So should the command be click or click and wait? Since it's going to load a new page, you will use click and wait team. Whenever there is something that is loading within that specific web page, you have to always use click and wait. So where do I click and wait? On this recover password. So let's inspect. It says button, name is submit underscore forgot. So let's try to write the XPath for it. So I'll say HTML tag is button, open square brackets at, name is the attribute, equals in single quotes, submit underscore forgot, end square brackets, and click on find. Are we able to find it? It's coming as not found, locator not found. So there could be something wrong with this. Let's see again. Button name equals submit underscore forgot. It's correct, right? There's nothing wrong from here to there. Why is it not able to recognize? This is where we have to give a lot of attention to detail. As software engineers, especially as QA professionals, it is very, very critical that you have an eye for detail. Look in depth and see what could be going wrong. Because our skill of observation becomes very, very critical when it comes to testing any given applications. Looks like out here the S is in uppercase and it's not lower. So I wrote a lower. Let's try to change it and see. And say find. Now does it find? At least I'm getting the blink out here. We can clear the log and click on find again. There you go. So once we click on recover password, then I want to verify that this text is available. So to verify that a text is available, the command should be something like, as soon as I write VE, I'll get all the commands that will start with it. And we're looking at something called as verified text. How do we know that verified text is the right command? You can look at the reference. Anytime you have a question team, you can always record and see what happens, or you can right click, go to show all available commands and see what is there out here and try and add that. Okay, so we are trying to verify the text. Where should that text come? That is the first thing. So right click, inspect element with Firebug. It says div class conditional messages. How do I write the XPath? Can everyone try and attempt to write an XPath for this, please? I want you to try and write an XPath for this specific element. Here is the HTML code for it. What should be the XPath for it? I want everyone to give it an attempt. Just 20 seconds is sufficient. Look at this and start typing in the question and answer section. And always note, team, it has to be perfect. It cannot be having any kind of you saw even with a small upper lower case, it did not recognize. So you have to make sure that you give the complete details in the exact format. Look at 4a, the HTML tag here, what I used, and you have to write it in exactly the same fashion. There can be no two operations to it. There can be different attribute names, but the values. In this case, only one attribute. So what will it look like? Why so many few responses, team? Is it that you're not focused on this training, or is it that you're not too sure about it, how to write it? Because I'm showing you, you should be able to write it now. This is the time for you to learn. There's no point in attending these sessions if you cannot focus yourself for 1 hour and follow the instructions that I'm giving to you. Because my intent is to make you an expert, and I'm very, very sure about it that I will, but you have to support as well. I got very few responses. What happened to the others? So team, please be more proactive, involve a lot more in these kind of questions that I ask, because that is what is going to groom you. So it is going to be / div, open your square brackets, @ class is the attribute name, equals in single quote this specific text. All right, this is going to be our XPath. But if you remember from the earlier time, we learned that the single quotes, when we copy it from Word, does not get copied correctly. So I'm going to delete the ones I got it from there and put it back here and say find. Can we find the text? Yes, we can see it blinking in yellow. Okay, now that we know what is the text that we're trying to verify, whatever is the text that is out here, team, the exact text that is there is what we're verifying. Now, hopefully our test case is ready. So I'm going to save this test case as if _ forgot password _ tc001. Okay. So I've seen a few messages, team, in the chat, and I'll show you what is incorrect in them, in the XPath that some of you gave. Okay. So one of the messages that I got was this. This is not correct. And I also got one more message here. I'm not taking the names, but just putting these details. So they're defective ones. There's some kind of an issue in them. And you can easily figure out what the issue is by looking at it. Okay. All right. So for any of you who is having a little hard time in understanding what I'm doing, very simple. After the session, go back, watch the video again, and repeat it and practice with it. Yesterday there was some issue with the video upload team. So today, after day 2, both the videos will get uploaded onto our YouTube channel and placed on the website as well. So you can start to view it. And I just answered you. I just said, if you have an issue with the speed or something, just go back and practice once again, please. All right. So now here is the test. Let's see if this is going to work. Let's run this test case. Okay. And I will tell you exactly how the next few days are going to shape up for each of you. So now the test case execution is completed. And you will see that there's a green total out here. So that basically says that I've executed the test case and the result is a pass. So if you go and look at this specific line, you'll see verified text is a darker green because we're verifying something specifically over here. All right. Now we have the format of this as HTML. What we are looking to do is go more towards programming using Selenium Webdriver and Python. How do we do that? How do we take the test case that we already created here and convert it from HTML to a different type of format? So for a lot of you who have installed Selenium IDE, you will notice that under format, you will not see anything. What you need to do is go to options, under options, and make sure you check this enable experimental features. The reason this is important is as a tool, the developers of this specific tool have said that some of these features may not be exactly the way you expect. So you accept the fact that these are some experimental features and that should be fine. Just say okay. So far we've done everything in Selenium IDE and now we're going to look at the format, how it looks as a Python program. But then once we go to Selenium Webdriver, you will notice that we will no longer have anything to do with Selenium IDE. We will use IDE very, very limitedly, only sometimes to check the element identifier for each element that we're working on. So options, format, go down to Python 2 unit test WebDriver or Python 2 unit test remote control. You will see these two options. Remote control is the older version, so you can omit it totally. We are looking at Python 2 unit test WebDriver. And once you click on that, you say okay, and you will see the whole code. The simple HTML file is now converted into this mega program. All right. Here is how the bigger code looks, team. The bigger code, overall, this is how it's going to look. It's got a lot of things in it. And it is not easy when we start programming to go through such kind of a code. What do we do in that case? How do we learn this? The way we need to learn programming is very simple, team. There are 4 steps to it. The first step, in fact, I'll write it in a notepad itself, is learn to read the code. That's the first thing that we need to do. You don't need to start to write a code and so on. Just be able to understand what the code is doing. 2 is make very small changes to an existing code. There is a code, try and make some changes to it. 3, write your own small sets of code / program. Okay, you start writing your own lines. 4th step is repeat the above 3 by increasing the scope and complexity. This is the only sure short way to master any programming language. There is no question about this. All right. So always remember this, team. I'm going to put it here so you have access to a lot of these documents as well. Call this as how to master any programming language. And here are the 4 steps that you all should look at. Now let's go back to this code. Oops, is that code from IDE? Control C, Control V. To look at this code, team, it is very complex. This is what Selenium IDE gave. Now we will go and write our own code. To do this, we need a few things, team. We need a few tools to work with. And I've already listed them down here, so it's easy for us to go in a specific order. All right. The first thing is you require a Firefox browser, which we already did. So this is done for us, right? The next one is your Selenium IDE. Remember, all of you, we also installed Selenium IDE. The next one is your Firebug, and we have done that too. So these three things are completed. Now what we need to do is we need to download and install Python. Python programming language comes as a download file when you go to python.org. So I'm going to quickly take you there. If you go to python.org/downloads, you will have two options: the latest version Python 3.5 or the earlier version Python 2.7. Go for the latest version, team. Click on the download and it will start to download the executable file that is specific to your operating system. Now, this is doing it automatically for Windows. If you go from Mac and so on, you'll see it accordingly going there. Or just choose Mac and look at the file that is relevant to it. So I don't need this file. I'm going to cancel this download because it's already done. So once you do it, team, it is as simple as double click and start to follow the steps to install everything. All right. For RobotFramework, I'll come to it. RobotFramework, okay, so this is something I have to mention right now. When we're working with RobotFramework, the 3.5 will have some issues. At that time only, we will downgrade to Python 2x. Okay. Till then, we'll work with 3 version. All right. So our main will be on 3, but when we come to RobotFramework, especially the Selenium 2 library, we'll downgrade it to, and then I'll show you how we can handle it still after that. All right. So that is the download and install of Python. Very straightforward. There should be no complexity. At the end, make sure that you add Python's path into the system path. So what does that mean, team? In your system, there is something called as a system path. So right click on your C drive and go to properties. Actually, no. Go to your PC, right click on your PC and say properties. Under properties, you will see something called advanced system settings. And in here, you will see environment variables. Click on them. What we are interested is the variable called path. So look at path. Under path, go to the system variable called path out here and say edit. It will show you the various paths that have been created. Okay. So right now, since I was using the RobotFramework earlier, I have the Python 2 version 2.7. So they get installed by default in C driver in Python 27. So most of the time after you download and install, this should automatically get created. If it is not, then just add new and add this path there, like this value. Okay. And you will see it in your C drive. So I have Python 27. So this is first path. Then the next one is under Python 27. We have something called as scripts. So all the scripts that we need to work with will come out here, team. So you need to install these two things for sure. Okay. Now, once we have done this, your Python is ready. The way you can verify that the Python is installed correctly is go to command prompt, which is in your run, type cmd, it will come here, and just say Python. It should list out what version of Python you're currently using onto your machine. All right. I'll do Control C to exit from this, and let's go back to this document now. So by this time, you would have downloaded and installed Python, and you would have also made sure that the system path is there. Okay, so each and every step I've also mentioned in this document, but as you watch the video, it should be straightforward and easy as well. After you've installed Python team, by default, you'll also notice that there's a command called pip. This helps to do a lot of installation using Python. Is also working. So to ensure that pip is also working on your command prompt, just type pip anywhere. And you'll notice the different commands that you can do with pip coming up. So here it gives you all the list of different things that you could do using pip. The reason we require pip is at this point to install Selenium for running with Python, I don't need to go to seleniumhq.org. What I don't need to do is I don't need to go to the download section, look at what is the library for Python out here and download this. I don't need to do this. All I have to do is go to your command prompt and type this command called pip install Selenium. That's it. Only 4-5 steps, team. That's it. And after that, it is straightforward. It's going to be very smooth. So I say pip install Selenium and hit enter. So it should either start to download the required packages and install it, or if you already have it, then it will show you that it is already there. Okay. So in my system, it has already been installed, so I don't have to worry about it. All right. Now, this is ensuring that Python along with Selenium is there in your system. So the way it works is very simple, team. It is the primary flow for it. Python is your programming language. So all your code and logic that you write is gonna go using Python. So you need Python interpreter or something for the program to understand what we are writing. Okay. You need Selenium Webdriver, which we just installed right now by saying pip install Selenium, so that you can pass commands to work with browsers, be it your Firefox, your IE, Chrome, and so on. So when you want to work with browsers, you need Selenium. All right. Then finally, we also need Eclipse team. The reason we require Eclipse is because Eclipse is like an IDE. It is an integrated development environment. It will help us to easily write, okay, maintain and run programs. So I can run Java programs on it, I can run Python programs on it, and we will use Eclipse to run Python programs. So Python is required to understand how we understand the code itself. It's like an interpreter for the code. Selenium WebDriver to interact with the browser, and Eclipse for us to easily write this code in a very efficient manner. These are the three most important things. All right. So how do we get Eclipse? All of these are free tools and they will work on both Mac and Windows. So you should have no issues. So go to eclipse.org. All of these are free and open source tools, team. And you can click on the latest version that is available for download, which is Neon. Or you can look at the different versions that are there, or click on other package downloads and see for which one. For Java developers, we have some. For C++ developers, Android, PHP developers, and so on. So there's nothing specifically for Python developers, but the general Eclipse platform which was there is enough. So download the latest one, which is Neon, which you'll find it. Once you download, again, it's a very straightforward installation team. All right. It will tell you exactly for your operating system which version is required. Mine is a Windows 64 machine. These 64-bit machine. These simple steps are important. Once we have it, everything can be easy. Otherwise, my program will not understand how Python is. It will not understand how Selenium will work, and I don't have an IDE. Okay. Latest Eclipse IDE from eclipse.org. Download and install. All right. Alright, so now once you get to Eclipse, you will notice something like this team. This is going to be the typical UI for Eclipse. The other thing you require here is something called as a PyDev. PyDev is recognized or needed for us to start writing the Python development. So if you look at this list, we just have the PyDev and then finally how we start with a program. Okay. So to install PyDev, just go to Help, go to Install New Software and type PyDev out here. Okay, and hit Enter. And it will show you that we have PyDev out here. So you just select the first one and you can install it. But for me, it is already installed, so it doesn't show necessarily anything to be done. Okay, so this is already showing me what I've already installed, so I don't need to do anything. But for you, once you say finish, it will start installing. These are the only things that are required. Once you have this, then what you do is you go to File, you say New, and you say that I'll create a PyDev project. PyDev project is a Python development project. This is a team. Once you're done with these few steps, everything is going to be smooth and it will really go in a very, very refined manner for us. The project name that we're going to use for this case, I'm going to call this as our RSP September 2016. This is the name of the project. And you can see that there are versions, grammar versions of Python that we could use. I can say 2.7 or 3.0. Either one I can select for this. So let's use 3.0 because that will help us much more. And you will notice that that project is created out here. Automatically, whatever is required will be there within the libraries for us. So if you look at the Python libraries, even our Selenium library is included in it. So the Selenium Webdriver that is required for Firefox is already there. When it comes to the other browsers, you'll notice either should be there by default or we can add it. But right now we're not worried about cross-browser and all the complexities that come with it. Okay. All right. I have another 10 minutes, Tim, because there's a class starting back to back. So let me quickly show you what we do from here. The final thing that we do is right click on the project that you created and say a new file. In fact, team, just letting you know before you do that, at the beginning when you open the Eclipse, it will ask you for creating a workspace. So the way Eclipse works is very simple. It says you have something called as a workspace or workbench. All right. So this is the main workbench where you try and do everything. Within that, you can do multiple project works. Okay. Within each project work, you can have multiple programs listed. Okay. So you have your work desk or workbench, workspace, actually they call it as workspace, where you do all the projects. You have your different projects, P1, P2, and so on. And then you have your specific programs, okay? Program 1 or test 1 and so on. All right. So this is how it is organized within Python, within Eclipse. For all of you, you must watch this video again because this is all that is needed for you to get started. Now what you do is right click on the project, go to new and say create a new file. Once you say create a new file, I'll just call this as test.py. Py is the extension for Python. All Python programs have to end with the extension .py. That is how it is recognized that it's a Python file. And say finish. And it creates the space for you to start writing a code. Now, if you look at the code that we copied from our Selenium IDE, copy this and take it in here and paste it, you will notice that a lot of things will be automatically recognized. If we didn't install Selenium, we don't have Python, we don't have PyDev, all these things will start showing some red lines to that, hey, I don't understand what you're writing. But this code is very, very tough to understand and work with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a very simple beginner level test called test1 underscore WebDriver basics. Okay, and say finish. So I will only take a few things that are needed from here and put it in there. The first step that I will write is driver equals new. What was this? Not new. WebDriver.Firefox. WebDriver.Firefox. This is the first command. Okay. The second command I will do is driver dot, but for this I need from Selenium import. Did I write this as .py? I don't think I saved it as .pyt. That is the problem. See, Control C. I'm gonna delete this one. I'm gonna recreate this file. See, as soon as you don't create it correctly, it will always throw the error. Just say test underscore one underscore WebDriver basics .py. Okay, now let's put this from Selenium import the first command. This is what is required to. Otherwise this WebDriver will not get recognized. All right, what we're writing right now is a Python program team. Okay, the command syntax and how it works, we will look at it in the day 3 onwards. We will start with Python tutorials, then we'll do Selenium WebDriver, and we'll go at length on this. Now, had I not had this, I'll just do a simple comment for this line. It will say that, hey, I don't recognize what WebDriver is. Unless I say that from the Selenium library, import the WebDriver. So here, under the Python, I have Selenium. In that, there is WebDriver. Get this. Unless this is there, it will not let me work with a WebDriver. Now I can say driver.get and say that the URL that I want to get is interact.com/app. This is the command. Then I will say, that's it. Let's just put it till here. Save this and run this program by clicking on this green thing and say Python run. The unit tests and all those things you can ignore for now, team. We don't really need those. We can work straight away with simple Python programs. You don't require anything else. So it's opened my Firefox and it is navigated to interact.com/app. So perfect. This is exactly what we wanted it to do. But is this our test case? No. So our test case, which was if underscore forgot password underscore tc001, has a few steps, correct? Now let's look at this code and copy some of the steps there. I'm going to ignore all of these here. It is not needed. It is just additional things that is provided. So I'm trying to avoid the complexity and make it much more simple for us to understand. Now what we will do is from this line where we are trying to click on the login link or click on the forgot password, till here I'm going to copy this, okay, and put it out here. These are the steps that we're following. In fact, even driver.get needs to be there, so I'll put that too. There is a lot of importance when it comes to spaces and tabs in Python, so we'll discuss this as we go along. Now the same command, let's try and run it again. The same script, okay? By just adding, we have not yet learned to read the code also. We're just making one readable working code coming in. Once that comes in, then we can talk about going line by line and understanding it. So it has opened the app, it has clicked on the login link. Now it has come to that login page, if you've noticed, correct? But then why is it not entering username and password? We have to go back here and see if there's any issue. And if you notice that we write the code on the top out here and in the console, if there's any error in the program, it will come out here. Just like Selenium IDE, where we were writing the code on one side like this. Let's go back to our HTML. Here we were writing, and here in the log we were getting the results. So similarly out here. So what it says is there is an error that occurred on line number 19. So when it was trying to click on the forgot password, it has an error. And what is the error? If you go down, it will tell me that there was no such element exception, or it could not locate the element. Do you think the XPath or the element identifier is correct, team? Yes, it is, because it worked in Selenium IDE. It should also work here, correct? Are you all with me? There's been silence for a very long time, so just want to make sure. The reason this is not working is because we have clicked on a link and we navigated to a new page. So we have to wait for certain time. And for that, there is another command here called implicit wait. So I'm going to copy this and put this message here. Okay, so driver dot wait for, let's say, not 30 seconds, I'll say 10 seconds. Each of these lines of code, what they do and how they're important, I will walk you through in day 3, team. But this is just to get us head start as to what we're doing. Now let us try and execute it again. And if you notice, each time it is opening a new window. So team, like I said, I do have a hard stop in the next 5 minutes. So if there are any questions that you have, please let me know right now so I could start to handle it. So here comes a working code for us, team. I have not yet compared to see if that text is coming or not. So out here, there is a try and assert and all this stuff. I don't need all that complexity. I will keep it very simple. I'll tell you how. I will just write the code very quickly, but I'll do the detailed walkthrough from day 3 onwards. So I'll just say app text or the error message equals this driver find element by XPath dot text. What it is, I'm not going to tell you yet again right away, team, but I'll tell you in a little while. If I'll say if a message equals 1 second, team, hold on please. Sorry, team. If the error message equals whatever we get here, then I will say print test pass, else I'm going to say print test fail. That's it. So this is the text I'm expecting, and at the end of it, I will just close the browser. So I'll just say driver dot close, and it should close whatever it is open. So when we do the execution, my whole focus is for it to run everything and give me the result. I'm interested more in pass or a fail. Once I'm confident of my script, I need the result at the end. So this is how you go about creating your tests. When we come on day 3, we're going to do a much detailed walkthrough and see how it works. So if I change this message to, let's say, does exist and rerun this test, it should tell me that the test failed. That is what is supposed to come. So we have seen how we transition from Selenium IDE to Eclipse IDE and how we are writing and running the code using Python with Selenium Webdriver commands. Okay, this is the code that Selenium IDE gave, but we did not use that code as is. We just took a few things and put it. This is going to do exactly the same. It's just overloaded with some more information, which is we are trying to ignore for this session. All right. So now it says test fail. Why? Because the text that it got there was different. We can also print and say what was the text that came there. So I'll say print that error message, whatever is there, and rerun the test. So I can repeat to run this test multiple times. Like I said, it is very important for you to focus on one main thing, team, on how to become a good developer. I was showing you, remember? These are the steps for it. Learn to read the code, make small changes, write your own small sets of code or programs, then you repeat it by increasing the complexity. This is how we go about doing it. So if the test is executed, it says that this was the text that came. We are comparing with a different text, hence the test failed. All right. So the same test is right now using our Eclipse IDE with Python and Selenium Webdriver. Now, this is the start for us to learn Python programming, what it is, and then go back to WebDriver concepts, build some advanced topics around it, and then finally come back to RobotFramework overall. So team, any questions before I end today's session? So please note that we will communicate through email on the date, timing, and everything for day 3. It is going to be next week. Secondly, with the payment details and so on, also you will get a detailed email on how you can enroll and start going through. We will also send you the information on what is needed for you to go through in the remaining 4 or 5 days before you start day 3, because there are a few videos that we want you to watch. Okay, we will send you an email, team. Okay, and there are so many things that you could continue to do, team, out here. This is how you have to play with. Like, for example, I got a suggestion saying, what if I take this message and I put it here? What will happen at the time? No problem. It will still print the error message. It will print it twice right now. Okay. RobotFramework works with Python, team. Python is the basic, but most of RobotFramework you'll notice are non-Python based commands. It just requires Python as a background, but you can also do with Java, but we are going to use Python. Chakrapani, can you send an email to manoj@itelearn.com and copy me, please? Karthik at itelearn.com. Ban, I answered your question saying that yes, I do have. I am running this test right now from Eclipse. This is Eclipse. All right. So team, that's it for today. Thank you so much. Have a great day. We'll see you back on day 3. All the instructions with clear details will be sent to you through the email. Thank you all. Thank you so much for participating. Bye now. Bye everyone.